It is possible that Jane Tanner is not the only person who saw Madeleine being carried away by the abductor. 40 minutes after Jane's sighting, and half a mile away from the McCann's apartment, a family also saw a man carrying a young girl away from the town. Later, the witness thought that this might have been Jerry McCann.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Whoever took Madeleine from the apartment has, by hook or by crook, gotten away with it. Not only has Madeleine never been found since May 3rd, whoever took her has never been officially identified or prosecuted.
Madeleine disappeared from apartment 5A here at the Ocean Club in Praia de Luz. The Portuguese inquiry was closed in 2008, but the British police have now uncovered more than 20 new suspects, including British tourists, people who worked here, and known paedophiles who were in the Algarve at the time of Madeleine's disappearance.
As you've just heard, there are theoretically 4 possibilities for whomever took Madeleine that night, including British tourists. Number 1, a random out-of-towner who happened to see her that day. Number 2, a local predator. Number 3, someone staying at the Ocean Club, for example, a guest. And number 4, someone who worked or resided at the Ocean Club, such as a staff member. In this analysis, we're going to reevaluate not only these 4 possibilities, but also reevaluate the possibilities surrounding the abductor's route. We're going to go down on the ground and retrace that abductor's route and reconsider a few things we may have forgotten about. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you find this analysis worthwhile, please hit the thanks button. Also, look out for further boots on the ground coverage of the Jay Slater case coming up maybe in the next day or so. So look out for that. And without further ado, let's get started.
Praia de Luz, Portugal. Peaceful and popular with British tourists. But years ago, the tranquility of this Algarve resort was shattered.
So was it some random out-of-towner who happened to see Madeleine that day? Statistically, these sorts of crimes involving young children tend to be committed by someone, a friend or family member close to the child. So statistically, this would seem unlikely. Logically, whoever took Madeleine appeared to know his way around, and so on this measure, it would tend to preclude someone who wasn't from the area. A local predator is more likely, but the problem for a local is how does he bring a child home without being noticed by other locals that know him, including neighbours?
13 days after Madeleine's disappearance, Robert Murat was named as a suspect. He was later completely cleared, but has told 5 News he still feels the case is hanging over him.
Robert Murat was initially seen as a local suspect, but I believe his own mother, Jenny Murat, provided an alibi, and no traces were found, including by the dogs, at his home in Casa Liliana, which is just down the road from apartment 5A. Here is Jenny Murat responding to a Portuguese reporter.
He suffered terribly, but he's not here at the moment.
Yeah, but
So-
how does he feel about this?
Well, awful. I'm very bitter. Somebody has set him up.
Yeah.
This was for a long time thought to be what happened in the Delphi case, and it turned out that the abductor and killer lived a lot closer to home than many wanted to believe, and some still don't believe.
But the initial search for Madeleine McCann was also hampered by police and other agencies in the UK, says the report. They fought a turf war in a rush to get involved and caused lasting damage to the Portugal-UK relationship.
The 4th possibility is that a staff member at the Ocean Club committed the abduction, but that would be exceedingly dangerous. Take her and keep her in situ, well, that risked discovery, also risked losing one's job as well as arrest. On the other hand, whatever their motives, why on earth would they take Madeleine away from where they resided? The 3rd possibility, odd as it may seem, is the one we're going to examine here, not in terms of who it might be, but what the abductor's route might look like. and how long it might take if it was someone who took Madeleine, who was no longer alive, somewhere else and hid her out of sight, as we saw in the Ramsey case. Now, you might think, why on earth are we talking about who this is, only to sort of leave it alone and then deal with the abductor's route? Well, we need to have an idea of the route the abductor took. If we're going to, if we have an idea who the abductor is, well, where was this person staying, right? Was the person staying near where Madeleine was staying, or was the abductor staying somewhere else? That's going to alter the abductor's route in certain ways. Now, I mentioned the Ramsey case. We can ask the same questions about that case as well that we're asking here. Was it someone from out of town? Well, unlikely. Was it someone local who lived in the area? Possible, but if it was a local, why were there no witnesses? Was it someone inside the house? Was it someone who worked in the house? When we examine the third possibility, it could be any guest staying at the Ocean Club. Just as in the Ramsey case, it's also possible there was a guest staying over on the night of the incident. Now let's deal with the abductor's route. The first thing to note is on every occasion that I've retraced the steps of the imputed abductor at close to 10 p.m. in May, Praia da Luz is already very quiet. Remember, this is out of peak season, and the area west of the Ocean Club, that's on the side opposite the Roja Negra, those black cliffs on the side, it's very, very dark. Another reason it's quiet is because it's cold. People are inside at that early time of the year. It's pretty cold at that time of night. And there's also been significant additional lighting that has been added, not only since 2007 when the incident happened, but even since 2019 when I first did this reenactment. It should also be noted that immediately after crossing the road, the darkness and gloom is instant, and in the alleyway directly above Kelly's bar, this is almost the darkest area of all. If you follow the abductor's route, it's actually difficult to encounter anyone else on this route, which seems to be precisely the point. The abductor's route so far is incidentally the exact same route someone who wished to go jogging on the single track to the west of the hotel would use. Well, let's just say if I was staying at the Ocean Club and I wanted to go for a run along the coast, and isn't that what most joggers do when they're on holiday, run along the coast? This is the route I'd take, and I've already done a video dealing with that. The real trick is, where was Madeleine initially hidden? That is to say, temporarily, on the night of May 3rd. I would suggest two obvious possibilities. One is inside a stormwater drain, which is conveniently hidden from passers-by and off all the nearby walkways. It's also shielded by a curtain of reeds from the Fortress restaurant. The second is in the reeds themselves. Hardly anyone would want to wade in there to look for anyone, although a dog off-leash might present a problem. In this experiment, the distance to the drain is shorter than you might expect, and the time to get there also very quick. In fact, the distance to walk to the drain and back is less than the time of this entire video. The critical point to make is that in scenario 3, the abductor returns to the Ocean Club via the rear entrance to the tapas bar, and if he simply walked briskly without running once, he would hardly be gone more than 10 minutes, certainly no more than 15. This is possible if the imputed abductor returns to the Ocean Club and tapas bar via the rear entrance. Did you know about this? But only a guest who played tennis regularly was likely to know about this entrance, and also the shortcut it presented to the beach as well, say after returning from a run or after finishing a tennis game and heading down to the beach for a swim. This is why it is critical to know how long it takes to walk from the tapas bar to the apartment and back to do a check. If it only takes 2 to 3 minutes, then the question arises, is someone absent, hypothetically, for longer than that, for a lot longer than that? And if someone is absent, hypothetically, for a lot longer, why are they absent, and where are they, and what have they been doing?
At 9:30, half an hour after Jerry's check, it was Matthew Oldfield's turn to look in on all the children. He went into the McCann's apartment, but didn't go into the bedroom, and so didn't see if Madeleine was missing.
Pretty much from the approach down here, you can see straight into the room, so you can see the cots as you were walking in. So it never really felt like there was any real need to sort of go all the way into the room. You could see both cots and you could see into them from there.
And that night, who wasn't either at the Ocean Club or at the restaurant, or who was away for longer than they should have been?
I sort of ummed and ahed about the angle and things. All I just know is that I had an unimpeded view and it was just dead quiet, and just thought, why I didn't take those extra couple of steps in.
Yeah, I was saying this earlier, that at no point other than that night did I go stick my head in. That was the only time, because the door was like that for me and I knew I'd left it.
And it's more that, you know, I felt like you'd done enough, you'd been, you'd seen, it was quiet.
And part of the reason we ended up coming through the back was the noise coming through the front door. You just thought you don't want to disturb them. It's stupid now, but...
Interestingly, Matthew Oldfield sort of does a check without actually doing one. He checks on Madeleine without actually seeing her, which by implication, which by inference, opens up the timeline to an abduction much earlier in the evening, especially if Oldfield's story is permitted to hold hands with Jane Tanner's. The biggest problem with Tanner's sighting is that she said she saw someone walking with a child away from the Ocean Club towards Murat's home. This doesn't really make any sense because Dr. Julian Totman, who is Tanner man, well, he was returning from a creche with his daughter after dinner and he stayed at the Ocean Club. So why would he be walking with her towards the creche away from the Ocean Club? Interestingly, it was reported as early as December 2007 that when two members of the Tupper Seven were questioned, Murat was allowed to sit in on this process. But I think Madeleine was taken later in the evening. And besides the multiple eyewitnesses of that family leaving Kelly's bar, I've studied the lighting and there is still lingering twilight at around 9:20 p.m. By 9:45 p.m. it's pitch dark and it doesn't get any darker. What is also interesting is that Matthew Oldfield, in his statement to the police, said that when Kate raised the alarm, all the adults were present at the restaurant. That's how I've understood it. But could it be, in the chaos that followed, that he may have been mistaken? Also, what about other guests? Could he account for their movements too? If you found this analysis interesting and you want a lot more detail in terms of this analysis, I did write a book, Deeper into Darkness, also Deep into Darkness. These books deal with the on-the-ground situation in Praia da Luz, which I examined quite closely. I'll put a link to that in the description. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.